After studying this module, you shall be able to understand about the concept of savings. You will be able to learn about investment, and you will also know about the inflation. Let's first discuss about savings. Saving, in simple words, is that part of money income which is not spent on consumption. All factors of production receive money income as reward for their services. All this income is not spent on consumption. Therefore, excess of income over consumption expenditure is called savings. That is, saving is Y minus C, where S is saving, Y is income, and C is consumption expenditure. Since savings are derived with the help of income and consumption function, saving function expresses the relationship between the level of income and the amount of savings in an economy. That is, Y is equal to C plus S. If we assume that the economy is a two-sector model without the presence of government and foreign trade, the saving function therefore will express the relationship between the changes in desired saving in response to the change in disposable income. The income earner takes decision about either consumption or saving, and the other component is the residual. Since income and saving are directly related, rich people will save more than the poor, not only in absolute terms but even in percentage terms also. Saving function can be derived graphically with the help of income line and consumption function, with income on x-axis and consumption and saving on y-axis. The 45-degree line is an income line which gives us y is equal to C plus S. The consumption function is shown by CC and the saving curve by SS curve. At zero income level, consumption is positive, therefore savings are negative. At income level Y0, consumption equals income, therefore saving is zero. Saving is positive at income levels greater than Y0, and SS curve is the vertical distance between 45-degree line and the CC curve. Thus, saving curve is an upward rising curve showing a positive relationship between income and saving, as has been shown in the graph. Saving in any economy are contributed by the household sector, the private corporate sector, and the government sector. Besides, the level of income in an economy, which is a prime determinant of savings, it is also affected by the tax policy of the government, as direct taxes affect the disposable income of the people. A higher tax rate would increase the compulsory savings of the economy. Similarly, higher deductions towards social security like provident fund and insurance etc. would also increase the saving level. Although the relationship between price rise and saving is uncertain, yet on average the increase in price level has a positive effect on saving. Besides, savings in any economy is also affected by the distribution of income. More equitable distribution of income lowers the propensity to save. Even a higher real interest rate will give a greater return on savings, although the relationship between the two is not very simple. Since people have a strong preference for present consumption over future, they will forego present consumption only if they are paid quite a high premium in terms of high rate of interest. The poor expectations for future economic growth will increase household saving in the present as a precaution. All the above stated factors do affect the level of saving in an economy, although the relationship between saving and these factors is not straightforward and simple. Let's now discuss about investment. Investment in macroeconomics always refers to the value of that part of aggregate output for any given time period which takes the form of new structures, new capital equipment and changes in business inventories. It thus refers to the acquisition and increase in the real assets, and expenditure on these real assets may include a. Production or purchase of new machinery, plant and equipment, etc. B. Creation of new physical assets such as roads, dams, canals, airport, power plants and railway tracks. C. Inventory building, that is stocks of raw material, semi-finished goods and stocks of unsold finished goods. Thus, investment in any economy is very important as it creates capital. It should include not only investment in real assets like plant and machinery, but should also include human capital. Its aim is to increase the productive capacity and the efficiency of the economy. In accounting sense, savings and investments are always equal, as it is based on the static approach. But in real sense, the equality between the two should be seen in terms of planned and unplanned investment. While planned investment is the amount which all the firms plan or desire to invest, known as ex ante investment. The unplanned investment is the change in business inventories due to a discrepancy between total demand and total supply. If supply exceeds demand, business inventories will increase. Actual investment, known as ex post investment, is a sum of planned and unplanned investment, and this actual investment equals savings at every level of income. Thus, in monetary terms, the relationship between savings and investment is modeled rather than being an accounting identity. It is the unplanned investment in terms of stocks and inventory which plays a balancing act in equating desired savings to desired investment, though its effect on level of income. Since investment means creation of additional productive capacity and is taken in terms of the creation of real assets in the form of new structures, workshop, factories, etc., it should not include financial investment in the form of shares, debentures, government bond and equities, etc., because these are simply transfer of rights of the title and the real capital of the economy is left unchanged. Investment expenditure in any economy is of two types: A. Induced investment and B. Autonomous investment. Induced investment is a function of income and is undertaken as a result of change in the level of income and thus consumption. This type of investment depends on profit expectations as the entrepreneurs anticipate high sales of final goods. Any increase in the level of income and employment will increase the demand for consumer goods, which in turn will push up the level of investment. This functional relationship between income and investment is also depicted graphically as follows. By taking income on the x-axis and investment on the y-axis, we can draw an induced investment curve which slopes upward from left to right. It shows that induced investment is income elastic and goes on increasing as the income levels in the economy increases. Autonomous investment, on the other hand, is independently determined by a large number of exogenous factors like population growth, technological changes, and new inventions and discoveries. Levels of income and consumption expenditure do not have any impact on this type of investment. This investment is not affected by profit motive. Since autonomous investment remains unchanged at each level of income, it is income inelastic. This investment is shown graphically. Again, we take income on the x-axis and investment on y-axis. The autonomous investment curve is constant at irrespective of the level of income and is represented by a horizontal straight line parallel to x-axis. Investment decisions in any economy are also affected by the different sectors in which the investment expenditure is being done. The motivations for investment in the public and private sector are different. In the public sector, profit maximization may not be the only basis for investment. The decisions here may be influenced by the social and political factors. The cost-benefit techniques which help in assessing the social profitability and the social cost of the proposed investment, as the social welfare considerations are more important in such investment. On the other hand, investment decisions in the private sector are motivated by profit maximization. The expected profitability is the main motive of the private entrepreneurs. While investing in new machines or factories, the private investors compare expected returns from an investment with its present cost to determine its profitability. To determine whether investment expenditure would be profitable or not, the expected returns from the asset are compared with the cost of financing investment, which involves the concept of rate of interest. Keynes has used the concept of marginal efficiency of capital to measure the expected returns on the capital assets and has compared it with rate of interest in order to determine the investment decisions. Moving on to discuss about the inflation. The concept of inflation is a new experience for the world economic markets, as in the pre-20th century, the upward pressure of prices had been very little due to gold and other metallic standards. Strong political pressures often resulted in issuing more money, which resulted in the increase in price level. This ordinary inflation is a situation in which the general price level in an economy is rising and the value of money is falling. It reflects a situation where the demand for goods and services exceeds their supply. It can be the result of a sector and the government expenditure being more than the revenues, or could be due to a shortfall in supply. Inflation could also be the result of an increase in the cost of production, but it will persist only if it is accompanied by an increase in money supply, which shows that inflation is basically a monetary phenomenon. But every rise in prices is not to be taken as inflation. Inflation is only a persistent upward movement in the price level at a substantial rate over a long period of time. The word persistent rise is important here because if the price level goes up today and falls tomorrow, it will not imply inflation, but only short-term fluctuations in price. Similarly, the term general price level is also important as it is not concerned with the rise in price of a particular commodity or a small group of commodities. Economists are of the view that a mild degree of inflation is not only desirable, but it is a necessary condition of economic growth, especially in developing economies with unemployed manpower and underutilized resources. But the positive effect in terms of inducement to investors remains only as long as inflation is kept under control. Initially, with the rise in price level, the profit margins of the producers tend to widen and encourage more investment, leading to more employment and more income. But a persistent rise in prices over a long period of time will increase the cost of living, leaving a dent in the level of savings. Inflation is in fact a leaking bucket and will not only erode the purchasing power of the society but would also result in some other economic mechanisms. A. Under the money illusion, consumers can overestimate the real value of their inflated revenue and will increase their real consumption on the basis of perception of an increase in income, which would actually lead to a decrease in saving. B. A high level of inflation would compel the consumers to spend a major part of their income in present, leaving a small part of saving for the future, especially if their income is not strictly indexed to the consumer price index. Some economists believe that under conditions of inflation, economic agents try to compensate the depreciation in their real savings by stepping up their current savings. But the empirical evidence about different countries is not conclusive. The increase in prices of goods and services puts pressure on savings because the saved amount will be able to buy lesser number of goods and services. D. In fact, inflation causes many distortions in the economy. When prices rise over a long period of time, people who are retired and those living on fixed income cannot buy as much as they could earlier. This also discourages saving as the worth of money is more in the present than in the future. E. Inflation is not only affecting the savings adversely but also makes the financing of investment more difficult, as a certain level of saving is always required for this investment. It even makes difficult for the business to plan for the future, as it becomes harder to predict the future demand at increasing prices, and therefore the decisions about how much should be produced are also affected. Another adverse impact of inflation is in terms of generation of uncertainty of future prices, interest rates and exchange rate. Uncertainty increases the risk among potential trade partners about investment and productive activity of the firms and markets. Moreover, inflation not only disrupts the operations of a nation's financial institutions and markets within the economy, but discourage their integration with the rest of the world's market. Amongst different types of investments, the effect of inflation on a particular portfolio will depend on the types of securities it has. If investment done is only in stocks, one should not worry about inflation, but the real problem of inflation is that it discourages investors by reducing their confidence in those investments which take long time to mature. The effect of inflation on investment is also felt indirectly, as inflation increases both transaction and information costs. The uncertainty on the rate of inflation also leads to reluctance amongst individuals. It inhibits investment, which ultimately affects economic growth. Even the intermediaries are not willing to provide long-term funds for capital formation during inflationary environment. Thus, both borrowers and lenders are reluctant to enter into long-term contracts. The governments try to protect certain sectors of the economy during high inflation. A ceiling on interest rate is put. Such controls may lead to inefficient allocation of capital in the economy, affecting economic growth adversely. Moreover, the fixed income investors are also hit hard by inflation, as the real return in terms of purchasing power of the investors is less than the nominal return, as the real rate of return is in fact measured by the nominal rate of return reduced by the rate of inflation. The small middle class investors also feel uneasy, particularly if they are retired, as it becomes difficult for them to make an adjustment between pensions and financial investments. Therefore, it is suggested that social security payments are indexed to inflation so that the effect of inflation is compensated. Moreover, one should invest in securities with fixed returns, although such securities offer lower returns. Although there are other significant effects of inflation, as it leads to the growth of black money, creates high cost economy and raises the level of planned expenditure, but there is no doubt that sustained inflation is damaging to long run growth and the financial system in general. Inflation leads to lower real returns on all assets, which interface with the functioning of financial markets and thus have a damaging effect on the credit market. The supply of credit for funding investment is thus reduced, which in turn would change the level of economic growth. Now we will summarize what we have discussed in this module. A, excess of income over consumption expenditure is called saving, that is, saving is Y minus C, where S is saving, Y is income, and C is consumption expenditure. Investment in macroeconomics analysis refers to the value of that part of the aggregate output for any given time period, which takes the form of new structures, new capital equipment, and changes in business inventories. Inflation is a situation in which the general price level in an economy is rising and the value of money is falling. It reflects a situation where the demand for goods and services exceeds their supply.